Now I will share something with you. Take note. When ordinary people direct, people sleep. When talented people direct, people wake up. When geniuses direct, people stand up. And when saints direct, people work. That's how it is. When you sleep, ordinary people direct you. When you wake up, talented people direct you. When you stand up, geniuses direct you. And when you begin to work, saints direct you. Now it's clear, this is an inner state. Sometimes you fall asleep. Why? Because ordinary people direct you, and so you sleep. When talented thoughts and feelings arrive, you wake up and think about doing something. When geniuses come, you stand up and prepare yourself. And when saints come, that is the full day of light. So I say, work happens when saints direct you. Now don't try to turn into a saint. Instead, seek direction from saints. The mistake lies in someone wanting to know whether they are a saint. If you are a saint, it's a different matter altogether. My understanding is that saints should direct you, and you should work. That is God's blessing. Let the geniuses direct you too. This way there will be no inner conflict. Someone asks, am I talented? Am I a genius? A person cannot be entirely ordinary, but ordinary thoughts can direct them. A person cannot be entirely talented, but talented thoughts can direct them. And when you sleep, you are connected with ordinary people. When you sleep, you eat and drink together with them. But when talented people direct you, you wake up. This means you align with them. This waking up is not done by us, but through us. Finally, when saints direct you, when you work, you align with the saints because saints always work. What God has ordained, you cannot make smarter or better. Don't sit around wondering what to do. Fulfill God's will. Fulfill what God has ordained and created. In school, for example, they give you a model or a drawing. Your task is to replicate the drawing. You don't sit down to invent something new. No student can create a better model than the one they're given. And no person can create a better model than what is said, that humans are made in the image and likeness of God. To this day, no artist has succeeded in painting a human being in their true image and likeness as they are created. They've come close, but it's still far from perfect. I say this now, all of you are called to make something of yourselves, and some of you who don't understand God's law may fall into delusion. As Scripture says, the whole world is under the influence of evil. People are lying in deception. They do not have a clear understanding of life. And you cannot have a clear understanding of life without love. Without love, life is misunderstood. It becomes torment, something unstable. Only through love can life become known. Without love, life is unknown. Why do you need love? To know life. Now, if difficulties, suffering, and troubles come to you, these are secondary matters. Suffering is a great illusion. You suffer, you torment yourself saying, my hair has turned gray from suffering. But you're mistaken. You don't have any real suffering. Your hardship is made of cardboard. Once a thief appeared with a cardboard knife to threaten a wealthy man. The man begged, don't kill me. The thief held a knife made of cardboard. When the thief left, the man said, he almost killed me. They told him it was a cardboard knife. Really? He said. If I had known, I would have fought him. And so I tell you now, the knife with which the devil constantly threatens you is made of cardboard. Your sufferings are made of straw. Yes, straw! You suffer because you think you have no money, no spouse, no health, or that God has abandoned you, or your father, mother, or brother doesn't love you. But you don't actually know this. The only thing you truly know is what you think. Love them. When love enters you, it will illuminate their hearts, and you'll know if they love you or not. How can you understand the life of good people if you don't love them? Love is the standard by which life is assessed. It is your standard. You'll ask, why do I need love? It is the standard. Without it, life is misunderstood. Love is the divine standard of life. When you have love, you have a standard by which to assess life. And then great happiness awaits you without exception. There are no exceptions for those who have love. Someone may say, love is meaningless. Without love, life is empty. With love, it is full. This is the new understanding. If there's emptiness, it lies in lovelessness. Fullness resides in love. And love is the standard. When you have this standard, you will have peace, tranquility, joy, and cheerfulness. Sometimes you say you've lost your joy. That means you've lost your standard. Take back your standard. Now, if you enter a cellar carrying your candle, you will not stumble. Imagine that this candle represents your love. If you enter the dark cellar without a candle, you will encounter many obstacles and difficulties. Therefore, if you enter and stumble, it means you are without a candle. What should you do? Light the candle, and everything around will become bright. Thus, love is a standard, and love is a path. Now, this applies to the heart. The second aspect concerns the mind. This is wisdom. It is a path. It is a standard. You cannot possess knowledge, evaluate it, understand it, have it, or apply it unless you are wise. Wisdom is a standard. Some people love to talk excessively. Each of you has a desire to make others believe in you, to see that you want others to believe in something that you yourself do not believe in. You want others to think something that you yourself do not think or fully understand. How can you convince them? Only what a person knows well can they put into practice. An Englishman returned from India. After studying there for 20 years, he learned one specific thing that he knew positively. He had learned how to frighten dogs, even the most ferocious ones. By whistling in a certain way, all the dogs would scatter. That is what he had mastered. He went back to England, to London, and said, "No dog can catch or bite me. As soon as I whistle, they run away from me." An English lord who owned 40 bulldogs, the fiercest kind, said, "Let's test this." They went out to a field, and the man made a circle around himself. The Lord released one dog, which approached the circle, barked, but could not step over it. The man whistled a little. Then the Lord released a second, third, and fourth dog, and eventually all 40 dogs surrounded him, barking and watching him. The man put his fingers to his mouth, whistled, and all the dogs ran off, disappearing. This is true knowledge. When you say something to make the dogs run away, they must run. If the dogs don't run, you lack knowledge. What are the misfortunes in the world? They are like dogs. What are the sufferings of people? They are like barking dogs around you. Whistle at them, and they'll scatter. That is knowledge. You can think all sorts of philosophies, but if you cannot free yourself from these dogs, you lack the standard by which to measure your knowledge. Assumptions are one thing, knowledge is another. Knowledge must be practical for each of you. That's how you should view it and measure it. It is not knowledge for external things. For external people, there is different standard. But for yourself, if you want true knowledge, you must rely on something you can achieve yourself and something that will satisfy you. You should not ask others for their validation. The third aspect is truth. Truth is also a standard, one for freedom. You cannot be free unless you have a standard. Freedom is not something external that can be obtained. Freedom is based on internal principles. To be free, you must first be alive and have love. To be free, you must have knowledge. To be free, you must have the standard of truth within yourself. Then you can become strong. Therefore, you will earn your freedom and won't need to wait for someone else to grant it. External freedom, which others may give you, can always be taken away. A master can grant you freedom, but can also take it away. True freedom depends on the conditions in which we find ourselves. A sick person is not free. A doctor may give them certain medications and free them from their illness. Another doctor may give a medication that causes illness, but if you have truth, you will become your own healer. Until a person becomes their own healer, and this healing is an inner harmony, freedom cannot be complete. A person must have an intimate internal connection with God. Now I speak of the word God as something sacred. It represents our relationship with the Spirit within. It is the unity of the Spirit and the soul. This inner unity is the foundation of all blessings in the future development of a person. When one understands the great truth in this way, that is true understanding. The one who does not understand the truth waits for the world to become good so that they can become good. The world does not need to become good. The world refers to all the people living in it. God, who has created everything, encompasses everyone. Therefore, if you understand God's ways and are one with Him, nothing can limit you. God is always free. As Scripture says, where the Spirit is, there is freedom. Where the Spirit is, there is truth, and truth brings freedom. Now, if you ask, how can this be? It means you are not ready. When someone asks me how they can see, I know they are blind. But the moment they stop asking me how they can see, they say, "Now I see." Once they see, it means they are on their way and we are moving together. And so we move together. We are in motion. I say, look here. They reply, I see this. In every situation they see. We go to cities, villages, springs, and everything else. And as long as someone keeps asking me, they are not seeing. When they ask me how they can hear, I know they are deaf. But when they stop asking, can I hear? I know they are now hearing. So I say, stop asking now. That is to stop. You must open your eyes. Don't expect someone else to open them for you from the outside. Don't expect this to happen in the morning when you wake up and a servant comes to open your eyelids. This is your prerogative. So why do we expect and rely on salvation to come only from the outside and not from within? External conditions exist, but I now speak to those who understand. And for those who are still trying to understand, let them strive. Because when you plant a seed, the seed stored in the barn has a potential desire to grow. But no matter how much it desires, it cannot grow in the barn. However, when you sow it in the field and give it its place, it immediately begins to grow on its own. It already has the opportunity. And then the seed can produce another seed like itself. Therefore, if a grain of wheat can grow and bear fruit, so can a person. When a person finds themselves in a state of suffering, suffering is already a sign that you have left the divine barn and entered the divine field. Thus, external conditions act upon you. Now it is your turn to grow, to develop, and to bear fruit. And then you will have God's blessing. That is how it should be understood. Because if we don't understand suffering in the barn, there is nothing to suffer about. Suffering exists only in the field. You must grow, and once you ripen, the suffering will cease again. When a person leaves this world for another, the suffering stops as well. Thus, suffering is something temporary. Some suffering is greater and some is smaller. There is a difference. The greater the suffering, the greater the growth. The smaller the suffering, the smaller the growth. An oak tree experiences greater suffering. A grain of wheat experiences smaller suffering. A grain of wheat will grow and re-enter the barn within 6 months to a year. An oak tree, however, may take 100 or even 200 years to reach the barn. It remains outside, enduring great trials. That's why you will see its bark cracked, because of significant hardships and external difficulties. Now I say, I am guiding you toward what is within you. I'm not speaking of things you don't have. It would be useless. You might win them, but it would be like gambling. Instead, I speak of the riches you already possess and can use and develop. Each one of you has a source of love. Hold on to it. Each one of you has a source of knowledge. This is wisdom. Hold on to it. And each one of you has a source of truth. Hold on to this source. This does not mean that you will be perfect, that you will have no relationships. You know that one spring is connected to other springs. The water from your spring will merge with the water of other springs and will form a great source. But I tell you, hold on to the spring that is within you. And when you find those people with whom you harmonize, because for a person to grow in the world, growth happens only when you connect with all those advanced souls. That is where growth exists. If you cannot connect with an advanced soul every day, you cannot experience growth. Someone may think that once they become perfect, they will live in solitude and no one will disturb them. Only a foolish person can disturb you. And if you experience disturbances, it is the foolish people within you. When they direct you, you sleep. I'm speaking of order. When ordinary people direct you, you sleep. When talented people direct you, you wake up and begin to think. When geniuses direct you, you stand up. And when saints direct you, you get to work. These are states of human consciousness.